Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, and let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, and let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, and let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words,
should we implement trade compliance in every single organization? I was driving around that particular question the whole entire week because there's no question about it that is important. Why many companies neglect to do that, I mean, it's a different subject, but in my opinion, it is something that is extremely important. And there's no good reason why we shouldn't. Trade compliance is something that is very popular these particular days, and I would assume it's not only these days, but also from the past. But some of us, we tend to ignore that aspect because we always can with trusted advisors. I mean, that basically make our life easier. In my case, I have my trusted advisor that is going to be with us today, and Benita Lee is here. Good morning, Benita. Good afternoon. Are you on mute?
Good morning, Jose. It's good to be here on a Friday again with you.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's always fun to talk about these difficult topics, and I'm very glad that you have the time to review and guide us through multiple different things about what it means in reality, the trade compliance management.
Yeah.
And I mean, I review multiple different openings for the trade compliance. I mean, and those open positions in the market, I mean, they are very solid, very, very attractive. I mean, we are talking about, I mean, $125,000 base salary only in so many cases. That's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah, and yet nobody really knows what a trade compliance professional does unless they have one in their organization. And even then, you don't really know what they do because you don't know until there's a hiccup. There's
Right.
a hiccup at customs. There's a fine. There's an audit. There's a free trade agreement audit. And those don't come along very often.
Over time, I have learned, and I still learn in so many different things. But in some business-wise, I learn about, for example, accounting, right?
Right.
When many years when I started business, then I was doing everything by myself because part of my education is related with I mean, I have one section of the accounting portion of the business, but I'm not good at that because I don't like it 100%. Therefore, I was slacking off in multiple different, let's say, compliance and stuff like that. So I said, okay, an accountant is someone that have to be in your life all the time, right? You have to have an accountant. And then most of the time, I mean, you look for an attorney when you are in trouble
Mhm.
In business, you have to do that way before, way before. Compliance. I mean, trade compliance is something that can. I mean, something bad happens, then the company can disappear, right?
Yeah.
For one of those infractions or issues that you may have. So trade compliance is something that is a figure that it has to be present in organizations. And we tend to believe that we need to, I mean, oh, that's for a big company. That's for an international
Right.
company. That's for I don't know, one of those big organizations. But in reality, that's not the case. What do you think, Benita?
Well, yeah, nowadays, your startup or your company, your mid-sized company can't even get off the ground if you can't clear those, regulatory hurdles. Like, for example, let's say you found this a really great supplier of, clothing,
Okay.
and you decided you're going to open a clothing shop. And then while you're importing your clothing from, let's say, a country that has sanctions or, uh, you know, forced labor, regulations, and it's discovered like at the port when you import your like containers of tons of cotton clothing. It's found out by customs that it's from China, and now you got to prove that it didn't come from that certain region in China that is being scrutinized for forced labor. Like, you got no business.
Right. And in my experience, I'm talking about many years back, when you open a container and you refer to the packing list and the commercial invoice and all these documents, sometimes you find things that shouldn't be there.
That's
Uh,
right.
and I'm not saying that technically it should be or it can be a human error. Not all the
Mhm.
time. Not all the time. Um,
Right. That's smuggling.
right. Right.
If
And,
it
and
if it wasn't a human error, then it's smuggling.
yes, and fortunately, what we experience in so many years in this particular industry is something light, right? I mean, like more of one specific item and less of another, or
Right.
something like a packaging material and stuff like that. But nothing serious like I heard from my friends in the industry that is completely way different. Some
Right.
cases, I mean, even manufacturer companies, they do it, or the importer of record, I mean, they do it just to pay less uh, taxes or whatever the case, right? But I don't know. That's definitely a wrong mentality,
Right.
uh,
Duties.
duties and stuff like that. So an international trade advisor, in my opinion, is extremely important for any given organization. And CoffeeBreak Logistics and Supply Chain has one international trade advisor, trusted advisor, by the way, who is Benita Lee, that is with us today. Um, what I mean, the services of an advisor, what it would be those basically, if we can expand on that, or
Well, in my point, a trusted advisor is one that can work with not only your import side, but your export side.
okay,
So you not only have to have operational experience, right, and support a supply chain, you also have to have a strategic and distribution experience and the ability to think in a multi-jurisdictional way, because it's not just what you're bringing into your country, but it's
hmm,
what you're making and then shipping out.
okay, and I would assume that part of the whole services, and it would be probably helping with the HTN classifications, just to make sure that we are in line. I mean, that is in the right
Right. So, yeah,
classification.
no, a lot of people, that is the fundamental thing. That is the HS classifications come from a act. So like a piece of legislation. It's like GAAP for accountants, right? It's fundamental. And usually that's how every trade compliance person starts out. If you're with a broker, then it may be for different clients.
Right, right.
If you're inside industry, like people like I am, then it is the entire inventory database of every commodity and input that comes in and every end product that is exported out.
I always refer to my experience because I mean this is what you see on a regular basis, right? I have seen companies all enough in the industry that when they are going to be importing an item, they still are driving around. I mean, what is the best classification or what is, and it's something that it should be learned because this is not the first time that they import that product. Therefore, I mean, it
Right.
should be completely validated, audited, and established for good. But I'm just assuming that they don't have any strong international trade advisor behind everything that they are doing. If they are wondering all the time, I mean, what it would be the best classification for a specific item.
Things change all the time, right? If you start sourcing differently, if your plant goes under a retrofit and you're making products differently, things change all the time. So best practice for trade compliance people inside companies and even like at the broker level really should be encouraging their clients to look at their product matrix on a yearly basis and just doing the research to make sure that that commodity code still applies, because that commodity code is what drives everything, right? It's what
Mhm.
drives Stats Can for Canada and US Census Bureau for the US. It's what drives all the trade numbers, GDP. Like that's how they figure out GDP, is putting all these numbers together. And that data that you're submitting is really the source that those government organizations are using to bring you that data.
Right, right. Uh, I found something that is extremely interesting for me because helped me to make decisions sometimes. Uh, Being in big organizations, when you are forced to comply with specific regulations, with specific entities like a CTPAT and TSA and stuff like that, that help you not only to learn yourself, but also to bring the standards in your company and be able to meet those standards, those requirements. And every time that any organization have a request from an entity that they have to comply with specifics, they said, "Oh my God, it is more work and the cost of going through that." But at the end, it's a whole benefit for us. It's a whole benefit because not only you're going to be in compliance, but more importantly, the standards of the company are going to be in a different level, and that's how you
Right.
grow, right?
And the more trust your organization has at the borders, the faster your shipments will flow, right? It's just like how Lorianne LaRocco always talks about the pipes and the fittings
Mm-hmm.
in the trade system. Like if your company is not continually looking over all the tools at your disposal to make sure that you are complying with regulations, that you know what the new regulations are, that you're looking at, how you can, tweak your business model or tell your supply chain people or tell your sales people these new regulations, how you train them is all part of, having the good flow of those pipes. Otherwise, you get a jam the size of, like, let's say it causes like a plant down for, 3 days because your containers got stopped at the port, and they're now looking through everything. Like, that's on you.
That is correct. Yes,
You're paying for all that.
you make me remember about the plan for Abbott, the formula for the babies that we were talking about. I mean, like a 2-3 weeks ago.
Right.
That plan got shut down
Mm-hmm.
for specific compliance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then guess what happened? The whole entire country was having issues with the baby formula supply.
Right. That shows you how interconnected everything was.
And we are not talking about a small company. We are talking about a
The
major
biggest baby formula supplier that we know.
right.
The one that serves all babies in the country.
So we started the conversation with, I mean, should we implement trade compliance? And yeah, everyone should be.
Absolutely. Like, and that one was, more their ability to be compliant with the FDA. And in Canada, it's like the reciprocal organization like the FDA. In trade compliance, if you're not aware of, like, the nuclear association, where you're importing cesium and you need to get your permits and your checks for that, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and that is another point. I mean, that the trade compliance advisors help you out with, right? Guide you through the restricted path for dangerous goods. This is not a game.
No, it's not.
It's not a game. It's not a game. And before we are going to move forward, let me show something, because that's, I mean, it's very sad, but it's true, and that's very aligned with the trade compliance. Let me remove this, and then we are going to be able to see it. This happened in a oh my God, in Bangladesh, right?
Oh my goodness.
At the port, I mean, it was a fire and explosion and stuff like that. And for people that have very good use of memory, if I'm not mistaken, 1947, it was something similar in Texas, right? And basically, the only thing that I'm saying is, I mean, back then it was, I mean, many people died due to that particular incident. Here we are talking about, I mean, like 30 people were killed based on this incident, or accident better.
Yeah, so like we take something like this. This is like a really good, like, catastrophic failure. Can you tell me, like, what commodity exploded? What was inside the containers?
And I don't know exactly, because it seems to be that the investigation is something that is going on, right?
Right. There's so many parts to this. Like, I look at that one picture and I'm like, what was in the containers? Did it have, like, temperature restrictions and controls? Did they name what was inside properly so that the yard could put it in a place where it needs to be? Like, if it was, something that was explosive, it probably shouldn't have been sitting in the sun, and it should have been in the refrigerated warehousing, right?
Yes.
Or, yeah, so, I mean, that particular incident, I mean, I'm sure there were many people involved, many pieces, and I would be hesitant to just look over at trade compliance of that company and point the finger at them. I think that everybody along the supply chain, especially if you're like CTPAT, so you have security certifications, or ISO, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Now, but I mean, from 40,000 feet, being these particular incidents or accidents, the only thing that comes to my mind is that compliance is an issue for everything that you described. So something happened, yes, it was an accident, but that accident, I mean, if you do the root cause analysis, you are going to discover that there's multiple different things that probably weren't in compliance. The reporting, the decision making, and multiple different areas that lead to this particular accident. And it's something that we always have to think about. And talking about the dangerous goods, I mean, this is a clear example. I mean, why we need to be 100% or trying to be perfect in everything related with the complaint, because you need to be aware, not only the importer, but the exporter and all the entities involved in that.
Sometimes stuff like that is something so simple like a decal on the car wasn't put on.
Right.
You know, we don't know. I have to look deeper into that.
Yes. Let's break a little bit and say hello to some of our friends. We got Margot. Margot, happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Cargo Margot. I love saying that.
It's very, I mean, you won't forget about the Cargo Margot, right?
No, I won't. And we've seen John Ford from Virginia before. Thanks for joining us again, John. If you have any comments or questions, throw them down, guys.
Also,
Let's
we got
tackle them together. Irvin.
Thomas Snyder, my brother and friend. He is from Irvine, California. Thank you for stopping by. Bernice also, oh, she's from Toronto, I believe.
Hi, Bernice.
So is your neighbor, Benita.
Oh, okay, yeah. A wrong HS quote can bring about a whole, yeah. I mean, if we think of HS as the most fundamental piece, that drives every other piece of paperwork, how it's claimed, how it moves, what its value is, how much duty you're paying. It drives everything.
And folks from the operational side, I mean, they said, well, we need to move everything quickly and turn around everything quickly. But when someone spend the right time in taking care of everything and making sure that all the boxes are checked, then you're going to be able to prevent something from.
I don't know how many times I've walked into a situation where I question an HS code and I asked the person, why did you classify this way? And they said, oh, because it's on a list at my loading dock on a piece of paper, and we've been doing it for 20 years.
That is correct, yes. Yeah, well, every time that we neglect something, then we pay a price for that, right?
Absolutely.
The only problem that we know is how big is the price that we are going to pay for that.
Right. And yeah, when it comes to AMPS penalties on the Canadian side and customs penalties on the US side, I mean, wow, we need a lawyer or like somebody from the broker to go through all that with us. But yeah, hi. She is a Canadian.
Yes, it's your neighbor.
Yeah, no, those penalties, infractions are enough to put a company under. There has been examples.
Yeah, no. I mean, this is a very interesting topic. I mean, I don't personally. There are so many companies that and when I say personally, it's because I've been in organizations that they stay away from handling the dangerous goods because you have to be an expertise.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be someone that is going to be trained. I mean, I'm not talking about one person. I'm talking about the whole entire organization trained about that, right? Being in the international freight forwarding, there's many different instances where you have to deal with dangerous goods, even though that is not your specialty, but it's still, you have to be a group that is going to be dedicated to everything related with.
Agreed. That reminds me of one of my colleagues from Ziogas, Peter Gummans, where he was an expert in hazmat as well as customs compliance and trade compliance. So I would always go to him. I mean, you can't be an expert in everything. I think that's like the most important thing we have to remember. Like, if you're a trade compliance, you're not expected to be the expert in everything, but you will know where to go and who to ask.
That is absolutely correct. So once again, I mean, we open up the conversation asking ourselves, I mean, if should everyone implement the trade compliance? And we tend to agree that and when I see in the way that I formulate the question, then I realize something that is probably why initially we made the mistake to think about it. We said, should we? But the right question, it should be must, because everything that is should is like I mean, we have the option or not. We is the right time or not, and stuff like that. We must implement the trade compliance in every single.
Because can you imagine, like, there's people that are all along the supply chain that see these challenges. And often when a company doesn't address them, they kind of convince like the buyer that that's their job, or the trade person that that's their job, or it's risk's job. But really, it's everybody's job along the supply chain, the value chain, to be on it. It's not just one person's job.
Um, Now, this is a question. Why implement a compliance management in organizations?
Yeah, well, every organization is going to have different ROI. So your return on investment, like, um, you know, I I dare to say that every trade compliance person out there has saved organizations millions, maybe even billions of dollars, just by putting in a compliance program.
Mhm.
And the way that you can see that is in the avoidance of duties, in risk factors. I know that a trade compliance person can save you just as much or more money that a tax analyst can.
Mhm, mhm. Um, Now, let's describe what is a trade compliance, and probably you're going to be able to help us out with that, Benita.
Right. So yeah, like with everything, it's the iceberg method, right? So like what you think compliance is like, oh, this person reads the policy and rules and they're like abreast of that information. Yes. They're not part of the business. Yes, often we're seen as like the bad guy that says no to everything. But what we simply are doing is advising the business that these are what their rules say. um, regardless of what an advisor tells you, the business will do whatever the business does. So that's why it's so important to have senior level leadership, executive leadership, that is saying, that compliance is important. People think that compliance is lawyers only, or like financial people only. No, trade compliance is really the final accounting of your cross-border transactions. Uh, Government obligation. I mean, yeah, totally. It's what you're obligated to do. I mean, within your different business models, everybody has to comply.
Who owns the trade compliance responsibility in the organization?
Um, the people at the top do, Jose. Like, like we heard on Supply Chain Now, when they talked about compliance. Um, there's a rule, and I can't I wish I could quote it, but our friend at A.N. Derringer, I think Amy Magnus said it the best, is like, there's actually a rule, a piece of legislation that says that, if you're seen to be negligent and non-compliance, puts your CEO in jail. Not the people at the bottom, doing what they're told, but the CEO.
And you made me remember something going through this conversation, and listening to what you were saying. It's a huge responsibility, but I learned something going through the compliance with multiple different entities. That, let's say, for example, that you are the lead of one particular organization, and I don't know, let's say, for example, dangerous goods, something that is very extremely painful if something happened, right? Now, it's not that you have to fix everything, you need to address everything, but you need to have a plan, because if you are going to be able to show a specific entity that you are working on that and you have a plan, then that is a good start point. You don't have to provide the solution to everything. You don't have to address everything, but you have a plan that is going to be developing in a specific period of time with certain deadlines and milestones. Then that is being taken like you are moving forward.
Often I get hired into companies that are doing a prior disclosure or a voluntary disclosure to the US government or the Canadian government saying, oh, I've been doing this for the last 4 years. I realize it's wrong, but now I'm trying to fix it. Or they're being audited by the Department of Homeland Security. And that is the wrong time to be, looking for trade compliance people. You're asking the trade compliance people to come in and, sweep up. And there's no Superman out there. Like, compliance is a long-term thing. And I say to them, the first thing you need is a compliance manual.
Right.
And you know what? I bet you go into your organizations and ask where the compliance manual is in case we get audited. I'm not sure we could say a lot of people have it.
No.
And even less people update that every year. So that's your planning.
Yeah, and some companies, treat this like an expense, and in reality, it's an investment.
Mm-hmm.
Because the payoff is coming through so many different ways that you can convert that into real money. Staying away from fines and accidents, incidents, and stuff like that. So no question about it. The return over the investment, is there.
Yeah, compliance is not transactional or short-term thinking. It's not you need a fixer. It's you need a program.
That's exactly correct. Who has the authority to impose, those trade compliance across the organization?
What do you mean?
Who has the authority to say, okay, this is the direction, this is how we're going?
Senior leadership.
So
executives.
Basically what we are saying is that if the lead of the organization is not aware enough of the importance of that, then nothing is going to happen.
That's right. So, and it's very easy for the authorities to see who's paying attention and who's not, right?
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. They have access to every single transaction you've ever made. So when it's time to audit, they have a targeted list.
I want to shift a little bit about the compliance, not the compliance, the trade compliance, right? But this is some way somehow linked to it. We were, let's say, celebrating that Shanghai opened up from all the restrictions that they have, all the lockdown. And yesterday I heard that in some province in Shanghai, they are going to go into lockdown again on Saturday.
Oh,
So,
is that right?
yes, yes.
This is the first I've heard of it.
Yeah. And it was last night that I heard that, talking to a friend in Shanghai. So it seems to be that it's a breakup of COVID in one of these provinces, and they are locking that down.
Again.
Yeah.
So it was Ningbo that just opened up again?
No, Shanghai was the one. I mean, Shanghai opened up, but there's one particular province that is being locked down again.
Oh, I see. I see.
And that is Saturday. So, I mean, by now is in lockdown state. So it's not a fun thing, because it seems to be that this is something that we're going to see quite often. And now going to the trade compliance, I mean, it's something that is going to be affecting the logistics and supply chain, and then we're going to see more of that. I mean, even for Q3 and Q4, and who knows for if it's going to be also
right. I mean, and you know, when you are in lockdown, people tend to just say, oh, like, why can't we get our materials? Why can't we get our products? People tend to just say, oh yeah, it's a supply chain problem. Oh, it's customs is holding it. And they point the finger. And really, it's like everyone needs to start communicating. And like that iceberg model, like the key thing is, having a multidisciplinary mindset, not saying, yeah, not it. It's a supply chain problem, customs problem. You need to start talking to people beside you, and in the certain, like, accounting, operations, finance, legal, right? Without talking to other disciplines, you'll never get it solved, but it's possible to get it solved, right? Because what if you had a really good relationship with your freight broker, your customs broker? They know people, like, at the port. They might even have a presence at that port. So, like, a good trade compliance person would know their broker, know their freight forwarder, and have that, like, ability to call up, Jose, do you know what's happening at Shanghai? And if I gave you this BOL, would you be able to help me investigate it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That is correct. Let me bring up a comment from John. He's basically letting us know that she knows about a company. Wow, this is a big number, $13 million, right? For compliance violations. That is a drastic number. And I mean, and this is big, but probably there's companies with bigger issues.
Oh, huge. When the authorities start to come out again, and they're coming out with a vengeance.
Well,
on different things, right? Different things.
Yeah.
So it's very risky for a company not to know about what these things are that are coming down the line. I'm not sure who this company was or this case study, but 13 million, I mean, that could put a lot of companies that I know under.
Oh yeah, forget about it.
Yeah.
And very aligned with Thomas' comment about that being proactive is something that is extremely important, right? Because if you don't have an international trade advisor, then basically soon enough you're going to be hiring an attorney, right?
Right. So that's the thing. It's like, people are like, I mean, there's this one story is like, Benita, we can't afford to pay a lawyer. As well, you can't afford not to at this point, because you've left it for too long, you're in a lot of trouble now. So let's pick out which lawyer is the best for your business model.
And people like you, international trade advisors, I mean, that's the beauty of that specific area, because you help companies to be in the right lane and prevent something from happening, which is
Right.
basically foreseeing everything that is going to happen is power.
And it makes it sound like I'm on the sales floor, I'm in the warehouse, I'm in the accounting and finance area. And I mean, sometimes my day looks like that, but really it starts with the program, and the program is choosing the right service providers. So I think 75% of my job, like my job personally, has always been to do RFPs, choose the best broker, choose the best freight people, choose the best insurance providers, bond providers that can service this particular business, and then have everybody work together, get the contact people from those organizations, build the relationships with the supply chain and the freight people, the sales people, and the broker. Like, it's all about relationships.
Right. And sometimes when you said the best freight forwarder, for example, right? People tend to think they say, who is the best, the biggest? And
No,
it's not always the biggest is the best one, right?
it's who you know, who has the best relationship with the people inside, who you can work with, who's going to give you the information that you need, and who can you reach at 2:00 in the morning. You know what I mean? When everything blows up and you're like, oh my gosh, major catastrophe.
Right, right. So, I mean, it's someone that is going to be able to hold your hand through the process, dealing with any specific issue or bringing the company to a different level. That's basically the best.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that is going to be able to do that, because not always is the biggest companies in the world, right? Not always is a good fit.
There's very few trade specific lawyers in each of our countries, like more in the US than in Canada. But the one of the Canadian leaders in export compliance and sanctions is John Boscariel and his team at McCarthy Tetrol.
Okay.
And I noticed that he's always posting, US regulations, Canadian, US, European. And
Let's talk about this 1054. Not everyone should be familiar with this.
no, and like finance people are, because the OFAC is the authority that regulates like the Treasury, right? So the Treasury has a list of denied parties,
Right.
just as every other organization has a list of parties, entities, banks that you can't do business with, like they're on the blacklist. I make it sound so exciting, but this is just where trade compliance may converge with like Treasury, Department of Justice, and all that, is like know your customer and denied party vetting. So like before you do business with anyone, whether it be a service provider, a supplier of goods, a customer, you should be vetting. And so like, who's doing that, right? Because the rules are changing constantly, and John just announced that according to 1054, there's new investment prohibitions. And this one like weaves so closely with the book that we're reading from Virtual Book Club, called Red Notice by Bill Browder.
Mhm.
That I found that interesting to bring up, because not only can you not trade physically with Russia, you can't buy stocks or hold investments in Russia. And if you do, I think you might have trouble selling them off.
Or purchase any debt or equity.
That's right. Because even if you were to sell them, you can't accept the transaction, like the financial amount that you're being paid back into your home country. If you're the US, if you're Europe, if you're Canada, like all the rules are different, but you would refer to your home country for your set of rules. And in the US, it's OFAC.
Yeah, that is correct. I haven't read completely the 1054, but it's very interesting because I mean, it's been adopted and changed over time with the specific limitations. And that's something that you were addressing before, right? That everything changed quite quickly. That for a regular person, like for example myself, it's very difficult that you are going to keep up with all these changes. But for an international trade advisor, that's what they do. That's what they do for a living.
And I'll tell you a secret, Jose. Trade advisors don't read regulations from front to back. They never do that.
Okay.
I mean, they do if they're trying to find a certain clause or a line or a paragraph. But you frame your problem first, or your potential problem, and then you go into the regs and you pick out that piece.
Understood. Understood. Here is something for the International Monetary Fund, right? And is related to food, and is related to the war in Ukraine, and is related to the inflation, and is related to the trade compliance as well.
It's related to everybody. Who doesn't need food?
Yeah, and I heard that the supply of food is going to be reduced in 50% for the following year, coming out of Ukraine. That is a drastic, impactful number.
Yeah, especially when you think that, Ukraine is Europe's breadbasket. It's also like a lot of other countries' breadbasket. They provide aid to, nations that are developing. So can you imagine the strife that this is going to cause? Like we're seeing it in terms of prices, but some people are starving right now.
Yeah, and that is an excellent point because different countries they are going to see it in different ways, right? Yeah, for us in North America, we got the fortune to probably have another topic of conversation with inflation. But
Right.
for some countries, it's not. Is that they don't have anything to eat?
I know. So I'm going to go to the grocery store this weekend and I'm going to be like, how grateful I am to pay 3 times the price for these bananas. Right?
Yes.
Come to that.
I mean, and this is something funny that I also heard from one of these stand-up comedies.
Okay.
The person says, we have a North American problem, which is sometimes it's a white problem, and is, for example, if we go to the ATM machine and says, oh, why we have to select the language that we would like to operate this? That's a minor problem, right? So that's the stuff that we complain about. For so many other countries, that's not the case. The case is that they don't have access to technology. They don't have access to food, for example, in this particular case. So yes, we have our own problems created by ourselves, and we always get distracted in not very meaningful things. And this is a major thing for so many countries.
Yeah, I think everyone is feeling it, and people are worried.
Now, I remember that you were mentioning something about forced labor, and that is a very interesting topic because let me frame it like this: forced labor, and I'm talking about, I mean, like 25 years ago, maybe if it's not more. No, let's say 25 years at least for me, where this is part of the conversation with the international trade, and today is nothing different. It still is the same topic.
Yeah, they're calling it modern slavery. And the ICPA, so the International Compliance Professionals Association, is down in Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
Funny. And they're talking about this right now. This is the most important issue in trade right now, and it goes back to what we were talking about before. Like, there are certain commodities that come out of that region in China where the Westerners have deemed to be a form of modern slavery, forced labor. And so now, instead of, it used to be that before customs could stop a shipment, they would need to like ascertain that there's reason to believe, or like reason to stop that shipment.
Reasonable doubt.
Now they stop it because it's coming from China, and then you have to prove like 3 levels back that it didn't come from that region. So can you imagine all the goods that people are just having to like forfeit?
Yeah, and I was reading something from Amy Morgan. She's from AI, if I recall correctly, and basically she was stating something like 20% of the cotton that is we have in our closets
Mhm.
from China. And there's a relationship with the forced labor and stuff like that. I mean, I don't have all this detailed information about where it is going to be true or not, or what is
Well,
the
absolutely. Just look at your labels.
right. But basically, how we can prevent this? For example, I mean, I have a company that produce, let's say, T-shirts. How can I prevent this from happening? That I'm gonna be involved in a headline like my company is part of the forced labor.
Yeah, I actually know like a lot of t-shirt sellers. And I've been telling them for like a year now, and I've even ordered their t-shirts. But yeah, I'm seeing them order their cotton t-shirts from places in South America, or like other places that are not known for having forced labor camps. And so there's changes. The easiest way for us to all pitch in is, the consumer. We as consumers think we have very little power because we always think we're just one person.
Uh,
But together, if we make decisions, we can change things.
Now, Amy, I mean, again, I have to continue reading what she's pointing that out, right? But she was talking about a single source of truth. That, I mean, when we are talking about truth, I mean, it's something hard. But
Absolutely. We're all, like, we talk about digital transformation. And for centuries now, we've been doing the same thing in supply chain and customs compliance. There are providers out there with tools that have machine learning capabilities, AI, and that's a part of a trade compliance function as well. to do the RFP on like 3 suppliers of denied party information, supply chains transparency, transportation and customs modules. You know, it could be SAP, it could be Oracle, it could be one of these small providers, right? But I get the feeling that a lot of trade compliance's role in this next era is going to be, now, not only do I need to be savvy in choosing the broker, choosing the freight forwarder that we contract with, but I'm going to have to be savvy with knowing which best databases to use for HS, knowing which tool, AI technology I need so that it can do trace back supply chain trace back and transparency, plus give me landed cost. So yeah.
So basically, what you describe is what exactly those are the aspects that we need to look for when we are selecting a trade compliance solution.
Yeah, I get the feeling that there's not going to be one magic pill. We're not going to buy like one system and then add it on to our legacy and then be like, oh, done. I get the feeling that it's going to be really astute people working with your supply chains, working with your sales and distribution people to find those tools to add on and integrate into whatever you already have at, doing it the least costly way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to set competitive advantage into the future.
A company that doesn't have any structure on the compliance, international trade compliance, where they should start. I mean, let's say, okay, I hear this. I need to do something. Where should I start?
I would always start with HS. So if you can find something that is going to help you with HS, there's no tool for HS. People think that there's like a tool that I can just Google the HS for. No, wrong. Google is the wrong way. You know your product the best. Your engineers, your R&D department, your lab, your chemists, they know your product the best. That's who you go to make your engineer your HS. Not a tool. You can put it in your tool. The tool can capture it. The tool can give you reports, but you, the importer, as the importer.
In your professional experience as an international trade advisor, I mean, what is the first conversation that you have with your potential clients?
Well, their first question is, this organization is very big. We exist in multiple countries, and we've been doing it the same way for many years. Like, as a trade compliance person, how are you going to come in and, impact change? And I always say to them, with a little tiny spoon and working with all of the departments at every level, not just senior, but middle management, juniors, and it's like a whole training and conversation. It's not telling people what to do. It's listening to how they do things and asking questions.
So basically, what you do is just help to build the backbone in terms of compliance for the organization.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny you should bring that up because I think of the supply chain as the backbone and the spine of an organization. I would say that trade compliance is really like each cartilage, like one cartilage in your backbone. That one TC or whatever goes out, you can't stand up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna bring this up. This is from Lorian LaRocco, CNBC, our friend of the house. I'm gonna pick up on the accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like everything else, we need to be accountable for everything that we do, regardless if it's something small or big. But the accountability is something that is extremely important. Because if we don't take responsibility, number one, I mean, we have to be aware. But then after you are being aware, then you have to be accountable for that.
Right. So remember, like, in that article, the importer is just blaming everybody else. Like, well, my freight forwarder or my customs broker or, you know, that shipper or whatever, right? As the importer into Canada and the US, you are responsible for all those things. Like, you can't put blame. When the regulations, when the hammer comes down, you are under it. I don't think many people realize that until they have to go to court or until they ask their lawyer.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken,
And that's why it's important to have the trade compliance people do the RFP. Because if you have the contracts people or the supply chain people doing RFPs, then you're going to be in for a major awakening when something goes wrong.
that is correct. That is correct. Even hopefully I won't make a mistake, but even the Bible added something similar to that. That not knowing doesn't excuse the fault that you can have, right?
Right.
I would say I didn't know, but still that's not a good enough excuse for me saying, oh, I don't know about this compliance, therefore I can be accountable for that. That's not the case, unfortunately.
So true.
So those blind spots, at that point, I mean, because we all have those blind spots, not on purpose, but there are areas that probably our focus is not directed to those.
Nobody is 100% compliant.
Right. And that's the reason why I insist that we need to have an international trade advisor.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to have them in-house, but you can have them just to supplement your existing business.
Right.
And, you know, to come in for regular training.
Here is a very nice. I mean, it's
right.
Tagging along on that.
Exactly, Bernice. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. It's not a defense.
No, it's about defense, by the way.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to stand up. You're still going to get fined. You're still going to go to jail. Yeah. In the worst case scenario.
Now, Benita, if a company, member of any organization wants to get in touch with you to talk about all these things, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Oh, it's easy peasy. You just go to my LinkedIn profile and then you look in my featured section. Okay. My featured section actually has my calendar. So anyone can book a 15-minute meeting with me and we can talk and see if you are, you know, if I can help you, because I love to help. And if I can, I will.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, it's been great conversation, and I always learn a lot about all these conversations. And thank you for being that open to guide us through the implications of everything related with the international trade compliance.
Oh, I'm sure we'll do it again.
We can do it all the time that we want it,
right? Right. Thanks for having me on Happy Hour.
No, it's always my pleasure. I mean, you are the best international trade advisor co-host that I can have.
Much. And the only.
As always said, I mean, we are better together because we win together, and it's been a pleasure, I mean, to talk about everything related with the international trade. Thank you for everyone that stopped by and have all questions and comments and stuff like that. We appreciate that very much. We appreciate the support. Time is running out. Unfortunately, I can go through the whole list of people that have joined today, but here is a good news. I want you to have one of these coffee mugs.
Oh, I can't wait.
So, and it would be very simple. You follow our page in LinkedIn, CoffeeBreak Logistics Supply Chain. Then you send us a DM with a comment about one of the shows that we have in the past, with anything that you would like to comment on.
Oh, I love it.
So how to improve it, what not to talk about, or better yet, what you would like to hear for us to bring from the following shows.
Now, can they just go onto the CoffeeBreak Logistics page to DM us, or do they need to go to our actual profiles to do that?
It doesn't matter. I mean, whatever is easier for them.
I'm not sure you can comment on a business page. DM, I mean.
Unless that you're going to be coming on one of the shows when you are watching, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah. So go into one of the shows, rewatch it, and then make a comment.
Or if you would like to go to Benita's profile or my profile, then is also an option. So for those that they're going to follow the page, for those that they're going to watch and make a comment, then basically in that comment, if we get your address, then we are going to be able to send you one of these.
Don't put your address in the comments, though.
No, DM, yes. DM. Thank you for that clarification. Once again, we are better together because we win together. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and we will see you next Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.